essential than ever that the United States and the international community continue to work together through the United Nations, through whatever possible vehicles we have to bring additional pressure on Assad to step down and to allow for a peaceful transition of government there in Syria.
Senator, we just heard there Leon Panetta talking about Syria. Syria's blown up again today. It's never been worse. You've seen, again, Russia and China vetoing an attempt by the United Nations to increase sanctions on Syria. It's a pretty depressing picture. 17,000 people, we think, now have been killed. The killing is escalating. What should be done about this?
What we should have done a long time ago was join with other nations and set up a safe zone and together provide arms and equipment to the resistance fighters who are being massacred. It's not surprising that, again, a resolution failed in the United Nations. It's really a sad spectacle to see the United States of America's policies and actions dictated by the UN Security Council, where Russia and China exercise a veto. We didn't do that when we went to Kosovo to save Muslims. It's a total failure of American leadership. If America would lead with other countries, and I do not mean American boots on the ground, we could bring the Assad regime down. Now, everybody says the Assad regime will fail. I agree with that, but it's been 17 months of slaughter.
The best parallel that I've seen you make, if you don't mind me just jumping in there, is Bosnia. Because you met a guy, I was very moved by this when I read it, you met a guy who had been in Bosnia, in Srebrenica, I think, and you met him in a Turkish refugee camp for Syrians. And he said to you, I can't believe this is happening again. Because the parallels are very, very similar. And of course then, Bill Clinton, eventually a Democratic president, decided to do something. We now have another Democratic president, a similar situation. Is it time that President Obama did something?
Yes, and one of the sad aspects of this, he doesn't even speak up on these people's behalf. Did you ever hear him, have we seen at all him from the Oval Office say what's going on in Syria today is terrible? They've set up torture centers. A matter of their policy and indoctrination is to gang rape young women and kill kids in front of their parents. I mean, it's really...
And you met some of these people?
I met them in a refugee camp, freshly wounded young men, defectors from their army who said their instruction and orders were to do this torture and rape and murder. And yet, you mentioned Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton also went to Bosnia, as you know, Kosovo. He said his greatest regret, President Clinton said, was not intervening in Rwanda, where some 800,000 people were killed. It cries out for American leadership. And when I see the Secretary of Defense make comments just like you just made, I've been hearing that same comments for 17 months while the massacre goes on. And these countries in the region, some of them are helping already, but it cries out for American leadership.
If you were president, if you'd won the last election, what would you be doing now in terms of direct military intervention?
With the knowledge that the Russians and Chinese are probably going to hamstring any effort by the United Nations, I would talk with the willing. Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, other states, even Libya is willing to help out now after their experience, and the Turks, and work together a coalition where we would set up this safe zone, and we would then be supplying and equipping the resistance forces and giving them the aid that they need. The longer this lasts, the more brutal, the more massacres, the more brutality, and the more likelihood that these extremist elements enter in, the more likelihood that these chemical weapons stockpiles that Bashar Assad has gets in the wrong hands or even may be used. So it is in our interest. And finally, one of our generals, General Mattis, head of his Central Command, said that it would be the greatest blow to Iran in 25 years because of its effect on Lebanon, Hezbollah, etc. And Iranians are on the ground. And the thing that makes me so sad when we hear this from Secretary of State, who I admire, and Leon Panetta, it's not a fair fight. The arms are coming in from Russia. There's Iranians on the ground. They have established torture centers. Why can't we help these people? And frankly, I have to be honest with you, there are people on the right of my party, the same ones who passed a resolution through the House of Representatives that we shouldn't do anything about Libya, by the way, which just had a fair election where a moderate was overwhelming majority of the votes. So
is part of the problem that I would say the majority of American people, from what I sense, haven't really understood what's happening in Syria? Because unlike, say, Egypt, where Tahrir Square was beamed to the world every night, and you saw these guys on horseback rampaging around, attacking people, the imagery was so stark that people could relate to it in America and then began to demand something happened. I'm not sensing that demand from the American people. They're more like, you know what, it's happening there, we've got bigger problems at home.
Well, first of all, I agree with that, but I would point out that it requires leadership to tell the American people what's going on. We didn't have nearly the coverage, frankly, in Srebrenica and in Kosovo that we have on this. So it requires American leadership to inform the American people. And second of all, it is a situation that the United States, the population, unless their attention is directed to it, it's jobs in the economy. They're war weary from Iraq and Afghanistan. I understand that. So it requires American leadership and to tell the American people are the best people in the world, British as well. We believe that America has a special role to play in the world. We believe in American exceptionalism, and unfortunately, I don't think President Obama does.
One of the problems people say is that there's no real dialogue now between Republicans and Democrats as there used to be. I want to come back after the break and talk to you about the state of Washington right now. Has it ever been this bad, and how do we sort this problem out?